Starting today, Friday, June 20th, Microsoft is selling the Surface Pro 3. How is it and should you get one? Watch our review. Let's take a closer look at the Surface Pro 3 specs. Looking at the display here, it's 12 inches, 2160 by 1440. It's a big upgrade from the Surface Pro 2, and we really like the way it looks. It has very low reflectivity, and that's partially due because of the glass and the LCD. There's no air gap in between, and Microsoft is touting that as like one of the first major selling points here of the Surface Pro 3 in relation to other tablet devices out there. For other specs, you're looking at a Core i5, which is a 4300U processor. It's 1.9 gigahertz with a boost up to 2.9 gigahertz. Of course, you can also buy this in a Core i7 and a Core i3 version, although those won't be available till later in August. On the front of the device, you have a 5 megapixel camera, and you also have a 5 megapixel camera on the rear, along with microphones. The cameras are pretty decent, definitely one of the better ones I've used on a tablet, although they're not the best cameras in the world, and they'll probably not replace your smartphone. Still, in a pinch, they're definitely suitable, and especially for conference calls, they work very well. Coming around to the side here, you have a nice volume control rocker. The buttons are excellent, feels very good, not loose. The build quality, of course, on all Surface devices are always top-notch, and Microsoft is definitely continuing that with the Surface Pro 3. You have your headphone jack over here on the side. Coming to the top, you have the power button, which is now moved from the right side to the left. As you can see, you have that radial fan vent across the top of the device, and it actually goes all the way around, and it works very well. It doesn't really push too much air out, and it's very quiet. Coming over to the right hand side, you have a mini display port, your single USB 3.0 jack, and then over here is the new power adapter plug, which has an all new design to it. It's now a thin, and it works much better. It's much simpler to actually place in the plug as opposed to the older version. And it is, of course, magnetic, which works very well. Coming down to the bottom, of course, you have your connector there for the keyboard, which is not required, but definitely makes the Surface Pro 3 much better. And coming on to the back, of course, you have the famous kickstand, which now opens to that initial position. But from there, you can, of course, move it to any angle you want. And it works very well. Now, I've had this device for a couple weeks, and it has not loosened up whatsoever. It stays very stiff. And when you place it on a table and using it all day, you're not going to have any issues. It's very easy to close, too. As once you go by a certain point, you can see it loosens up and closes right away. When it comes to the Surface Pro 3 keyboard, Microsoft has done a lot of improvements. Here we're looking at the one for the Surface Pro 2 and the Surface 2, as well as the original Surface series. It's basically the same keyboard, except the one for the Surface Pro 3 is larger. Only in the bezel region, though. The keys themselves are the same size. The other major change is the trackpad. As you can see here, the new trackpad is made from the same material basically as the keys, although technically it's very small glass beads. The old touchpad, though, was made out of the same felt material as the keyboard, and as a result it wasn't as accurate. It was also very small, where they've greatly enhanced the size of the new one. Having said that, it's still maybe too small for a lot of people, especially when it comes to height. You sometimes want to scroll up higher, but due to size restrictions, you can't. It works, but you still may want to use a mouse on occasion. When it comes to the type cover on the Surface Pro 3, Microsoft has not changed the connector at all. In fact, it's the exact same one as previous, although there are some strong magnets in there. It's almost difficult to pull off, but that's actually a good thing to have. As you can see, it attaches very strongly. The new feature, though, is this. It's an extra row of magnets. And that's because the Surface Pro 3 can have a second position. You can leave it flat like this, or if you're using it on your lap, you can attach it that way. Microsoft says this creates an extra angle over here and makes the whole Surface Pro 3 more steady when using in your lap. I tend to agree with that. It does fit better in your lap, and it's easier to maintain. The Surface Pro 3 has a new pen. It's made by Intrigue, and it's a change from the previous Wacom. I think for casual users, they'll really like it. But for artists, they may have trouble adjusting. One of the coolest features is this button on top. By pressing it, even when the device is off, it will launch right into OneNote. This is a quick version of OneNote, so it allows you to jot down stuff very quickly. However, if you want to unlock the full version, you just tap that, and it goes into your full OneNote experience. When it comes to the Intrigue pen and writing on the Surface Pro 3, it's a really good experience. You can simply place your palm on the screen and it disables. You can then start writing and the pen will detect everything except your palm, and that's exactly what we want. Touch sensitivity is good, though Microsoft said they're going to release a tool to help calibrate that. Let's take a look at the Intrigue pen versus Wacom. As you can see, the Wacom one here on the bottom is made out of plastic, whereas the Intrigue is now made out of metal. The quality difference is much better for the Intrigue. It's slightly heavier, feels a little bit more robust, and it's even slightly thicker. You of course have those two buttons over here, whereas you just have the connector on the old version. On top, of course, you also have the button. It's a very well designed pen, it's definitely better quality, and I actually prefer it over the Wacom. When it comes to storing the Intrigue pen on the Surface Pro 3, it's a little bit awkward. Sure, you have this little loop here on the side, and you can just slide the pen in and out that way. And it works, although it does feel a little bit clunky. However, I'm not sure what else Microsoft could have done. The pen itself is actually thicker than the Surface Pro 3, so there's really no way you can put it inside the device. And since it is a really good quality pen, you don't want to compromise by making it super skinny, plastic, or any other way. So I'm not sure what else could be done in that case. You can, of course, place it in various other places on the device, including the keyboard here. And you can head to Windows Phone Central for more information on those tips. When it comes to performance on the Surface Pro 3, I have really no complaints. The Core i5 is more than enough to launch most applications, and I really have had no issues. This is the same processor that's found in the Surface Pro 2, so if you're familiar with that device, you should be pretty comfortable using that on the Surface Pro 3. Now if you need a little bit extra speed, you now have the option for a Core i7 version, which goes up to 3.3 GHz as opposed to the 2.9 GHz of the Core i5. And if you want to save some money, you can get the Core i3 version, which starts at 1.5 GHz, and that device starts at $799. Like I said, performance is really good on this. It's a professional computer. You can run any applications you want on there, and it'll all run very quick and fast. The big question in everybody's mind is, does the Surface Pro 3 actually replace a laptop? It's a tough question to answer. I think it's going to really depend on what you currently have and what your usage is. I use a Dell XPS 15, which has a Quad HD screen, 512 gigabytes of storage, 16 gigs of RAM, and a Core i7 processor. It also gets around 7 to 8 hours of battery life. It has 6 USB ports on it. Now, the Surface Pro 3, although it's really good, can't possibly compete with that, although it does come close when you get the Core i7 version. I will say this though, I love the size of the Surface Pro 3. It's really thin, it's really light. You're talking less than 2 pounds. If I'm running out to the coffee shop, going out for the day, I throw the Surface Pro 3 in my bag. It's what goes with me almost everywhere, because I can throw it in a shoulder bag and not even worry about it. My laptop, not even a question. Even though the Dell XPS is 4 pounds and it's actually very, very light for its size and power, it doesn't compare to the Surface Pro 3. So it depends how you're going to use it. But the question is, can most people afford both a laptop that's really powerful and the Surface Pro 3? If you can, definitely get both. However, if you can only choose one, like I said, it's going to depend on what you need it for. However, I think for most people who need to do basic computing, the Surface Pro 3 is more than enough. Microsoft is also touting the Surface Pro 3 as a tablet. So how is it? Well, at 1.7 pounds, it's definitely on the heavy side. It's also got a 12-inch display. That's much bigger than any tablet out there. Having said that, I actually really like using it. I don't have any issues. It works great, the screen looks wonderful, it's good to read magazines on, and of course games look outstanding. But if you're planning on holding it for a long time, then sure, it may get a little bit tiring. Same thing if you have smaller hands or you're just not used to holding heavier objects. It's one of those cases where you're going to have to go to the store and maybe hold it yourself. I don't think it's prohibitive. I don't think a lot of people are going to be bothered by it. But I think in comparison to the competition, it is something to consider when getting a Surface Pro 3. It's not going to be as light, and especially considering 8-inch tablets are the big rage these days, it's going to be hard to compete against those. The final question for people about the Surface Pro 3 is going to be price. It's not really cheap if you consider it to be a tablet. It starts at $799. It goes up to a very high $1,949. That's for the Core i7 version, which comes with 512 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigs of RAM. That's actually a lot for a computer, and that's where this really starts to change. If you think of the Surface Pro 3 as a laptop, then those prices are actually within range of high-end computers these days. And this is a premium device, make no mistake, this isn't for budget-conscious people. And don't forget, you also have to add in that $130 keyboard to the price. So it's not very cheap, but it is a quality device. And if you think about it as a laptop and not as a tablet, but something as a laptop that can be a tablet, those prices aren't too bad. However, I think it will somewhat prevent people from buying this device. And it's really going to depend on whether or not you actually have a laptop right now that's actually performing well, or you're looking to replace it. Seeing as the Surface Pro 3 runs a Core i5, Core i7, or Core i3 processor, how warm it gets may be of a concern for some people, but I can say it's really not an issue. It does get a little warm, especially on the back, but it doesn't get hot. You'll never feel like it's just too much temperature. The fan itself is also very quiet. You really have to push it to make it come on. In fact, it was a few days before I even heard it. That happens when you play high-end video games, and for the most part, you're not going to ever hear it. Even when it does come on, it's not loud at all, and it's actually kind of pleasant sounding. Although it sounds sort of like a steam pipe hissing a little bit. But it goes away pretty quickly, and as soon as you turn the device off, it too shuts off. Overall, Microsoft has done a very good job here of keeping it quiet. So that's our review of the Surface Pro 3. I happen to really like it and think it's a huge improvement over the Surface Pro 2, but I don't think it's going to be the device for everybody. Still, if you can afford it, definitely get one. Tell us what you think though. Head to Windows Phone Central for more information. Take care, bye.